Let me start with a question. If you were building a consumer brand today and someone told you that the fastest way to grow was to sell on Amazon, partner with big retailers, and pour money into influencer marketing, would you do it? Most founders would say yes. In fact, many would say those steps are almost unavoidable. But what if you decided to do the exact opposite? My guest today did exactly that. Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to The Reluctant Entrepreneur. Kate Assaraf is the founder and CEO of Dip, a sustainable haircare brand that's grown into a 7-figure business built primarily through Shopify and a loyal community of customers. But what makes Kate's story so interesting is not just the growth of the company, it's the path she chose to take to get there. Kate made the intentional decision not to sell on Amazon, not to rely on venture capital, and not to chase the typical influencer-driven growth strategies that dominate the direct-to-consumer world. Instead, she built a brand centered on values, storytelling, and something that many e-commerce founders overlook: the survival of small, local retailers. In fact, Kate sometimes directs customers away from her own website and toward independent refill shops and neighborhood boutiques across the country. Her belief is that the future of retail is not either e-commerce or Main Street. It's both working together. Kate has been recognized as New Jersey Mompreneur of the Year, is a business member of the Forbes Business Council, and her brand Dip has been recognized by Oprah as Curly Hair Brand of the Year. Today, she's becoming a leading voice in a growing conversation among founders: how to build a successful business without selling out your mission, your margins, or your values. And how do you do that? Stick around. We'll find out together. Hey, Kate, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're my guest today. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. I also really love the name of this podcast because it is probably the best way to describe myself.
Oh, yeah, reluctant. Yeah, I think many, not all, but many entrepreneurs are kind of like the pinball in a pinball machine. They're just getting bounced off the bumpers and going random directions until finally they find their way, between the flappers and down. But my journey was certainly, I had a passion for a product. I couldn't get any of my employers at the time to embrace that project. So I just, that was 34 years ago. So I took my 30-year-old maturity level and threw a little tantrum and left and complained to everyone who would listen, including my wife, how unfair life is. And my wife just said, "Well, is it a good idea?" And I'm like, "I think it's a great idea." She goes, "Then why are you trying to give it away, Mike? Just do it yourself." And I had 10 toes over the cliff at that point anyway. And it was just a little nudge, and that launched me. But I had no business being in business. I had designed a product. It was quite technical. So I had a technical acumen, but I knew nothing about business. But in my young mind, I'm just like, well, how hard can business be? I got the hard stuff down. How hard can business be, Kate? Come on. Well, just figure it out as I go along. That was a mistake. That cost me years of drama. But at any rate, let's go back in time to the beginning of your career, before you dipped your toes into Dip. And do you use the Dip, or is it DIP or
Dip?
Dip? Okay. What were you doing professionally, and what eventually led you toward entrepreneurship? How did you reluctantly or through happenstance or circumstance find your way here?
So I had been in the beauty industry for about 20 years. So I'd done everything from marketing to product development to even just being behind the scenes on direct response, where it's like QVC style beauty. I've been in every scenario that beauty had to offer. And I honestly, I was just very disenchanted with the waste that came with beauty, and that at the noticing the waste came at the same time I was educated about plastic. And so when I was pregnant with my first son about 11 years ago, I just discovered by accident reading this book. It was a very small piece of it. It's called Boys Adrift. And a very small piece of it was talking about how plastic was not only accumulating on the planet, but it was also changing human health. and the aquatic health and really disrupting hormones. And and that actually changed the way I viewed beauty altogether. I was a little bit plastic blind, as most people are have been for the past 100 years, and I just realized like this is something that I wanted to avoid in my life, and so it wasn't really the beauty industry that led me to this. It was really the plastic industry and becoming a parent that changed how I felt about literally everything around me.
Yeah, I saw a small little, not really a slogan, but a little statement kind of at the bottom of your website. Something to the effect of, I don't have it in front of me now, but something to the effect of, it was not beauty first, environmental second. It was the other way around, right? You were an environmental company that is exercising that through beauty products, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I do think that purpose-driven companies statistically are way more successful and have a much lower chance of burnout and failure because the purpose is driving the founder, in this case, Kate, more than just selling boxes and widgets and things like that. And it is interesting. You kind of made a choice between beautiful hair and ugly ocean, or beautiful hair, beautiful ocean, right? You kind of have this tendency to want both, right? Cake and eat it too. Yeah.
Well, it was because of my time in beauty that I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I knew how hard it was, and I knew how much capital and how much running at full speed it was going to take to really build a successful one. And I feared that, but I also, this other piece of me had this unscratchable itch that was like, I tried every plastic free shampoo and conditioner at the time that existed at the time over 10 years. And when a new brand would launch, I'd always try it, and I would get so angry because it did the exact opposite of what I was trying to do, or what I wanted, which was I would buy a plastic-free item, and then it would create more waste because it would just sit like a tombstone in my shower forever while I went back to the plastic bottles that and so, reluctantly, I was like, I know how to solve this problem. Like I have the toolkit to solve this, and I don't want to, but it's become an unscratchable itch at this point. I'm like, let's try to throw my hands in the air. It's like, just because it's sustainable doesn't mean people have to deal with it being subpar. There's a middle ground where you can use, it doesn't have to be all natural. You can use the science and technology and the amazing chemistry that's out there. Just get rid of the plastic bottle. So that's what I did.
Right. I mean, we're not talking about taking plastic out of the formulation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are some scrubs and things like that have these little microplastics in it, which are a whole nother oceanic issue. Getting into fish, we eat fish, getting into us. But outside of that, your main challenge was the packaging, right?
Right.
Because you want it to be environmentally responsible and look like something that someone would want on the little shelf in their shower, right? Or bath, right? It needs to look cool. It needs to look like a top tier product. You don't want to sell it in a toothpaste tube, but you want to have it packaged nicely and yes, of course, work well. Otherwise, to your point, it just sits on your shelf, and if you throw it away, you're now part of the problem, right? Exactly.
Yeah, you just create more garbage if you're buying something that doesn't work, and that's not what sustainability is at all.
Right.
It was very, very frustrating. It was to be a consumer in the sustainable space, because not only was all the marketing kind of riddled with guilt, they're trying to guilt and shame you into protecting the environment, but then you'd buy the thing that was generally more expensive than what you were already buying and feel burned by that purchase. Just being like, oh, they got me again, that sustainable marketing. They pulled on my heart. They got me to buy it, and I'm so mad. And
that also makes you leery about any other sustainable. Now all of a sudden, the sustainable industry has to rise way above
Exactly.
expectations just to get through the door. Because
Yeah.
if I buy a L'Oreal product, I'm not a fashion person, as you can clearly see, but there's a name I know. If I buy a L'Oreal product or something, I'm just going to assume it's going to work, right? Because it's a top brand or whatever the top brands are. If I buy a Hick and Schmidt's product from Walmart, I'm just going to assume low expectations. It's probably not going to work well, but I'll only pay a few cents for it.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way. If I see something that's supposed to be environmentally safe and all that, I'm just assuming there's a compromise there. It's probably not going to work as well, just because, just like when you order gluten-free or something that's healthy, it doesn't taste good, right? It's the bad stuff that makes us want it, right? We need the fat, we need the gluten. But yeah, I think these companies that are trying to do right, that are making crappy products in cool bottles or cool packages, are not doing the industry any favors, because they're making it much harder for you when you come along and go, wait, we're different. People are going to go, yeah. They're going to go into it thinking it might not work well, right? And
Well, I refuse to accept, just from being in the beauty industry, I refuse to accept the tension between sustainability
Right.
and performance. And I think that part of that is realizing that there is a sustainable consumer that has, X set of expectations, right? But I consider myself sustainable, but I also consider myself reasonable. Like, I want to be eco-friendly, but I don't want to look eco-friendly. So give me that middle ground where I can buy something that removes the plastic but keeps the science. And
Well,
that's how dip came around.
yeah, you get two customer bases. You get the environmentally conscious customers who are buying environment first, function second. And for people who really don't care or don't notice that's not the top of their list. I've seen your products. They look like they could be sold in a salon. I mean, it's super nicely packaged and kind of trendy looking, and it looks like something hipster type people might even use. So you've got both audiences there, and for the cost of one effort, which is great. You talked about being a reluctant entrepreneur. You did what I did. It's like, no one else will do it. I'm just going to do it. Fine, I'll do it myself. That type of mentality. But you did work in the industry for quite some time. I think you said like 20 years or something. So what did the 20 years in the industry teach you or prepare? How did it prepare you for doing it yourself, both positively and negatively? I'm sure you got some negative lessons, like, I'm not going to do that, and maybe some positive lessons. How did it prepare you, and did it prepare you enough?
So it prepared me in an ultra amazing way, is that I had my business connections. You don't spend 20 years in an industry and not meet the right people, the right connections, the right chemists. Like, I met the chemist that developed dip, had done some of the most well-known hair care of the past 40 years. So he had 40 years of experience. And when I brought this to him, he had never done bar hair care, even though there were other brands out there. I said, make the best bar hair care that you can make across all different hair types. Don't look at any benchmarks of any of my competitors. Use high-end salon stuff that you've already made as the benchmark. That's the performance benchmark. I don't want to make another bar that is, unsatisfactory for me, like someone like me. And so having a business connection and business network, it wasn't just the who does the chemistry, and it was also like the packaging, which I just happened to, through the beauty industry and meeting each other. My husband happened to be a beauty packaging designer, so he couldn't get away from this project if he tried,
Honey, got something for you. I got a honeydew for you. Yeah.
And then there's all the marketing touch points that you just know through the industry. So that was something that was really amazing for me, to have that. And also it helps build credibility when you're launching. It's very hard to launch without any experience in a certain industry. And it doesn't mean it's not unachievable, but you build a little bit of clout being somewhere for a decade or two. And it makes, it gives you that a platform to launch and kind of some credibility there. So
Yeah.
that was all very helpful.
Definitely,
And then the
definitely
things
opened some doors, right?
well, yeah. And what's so funny is that a lot of the doors that should have been open from my experience, like a Target or an Ulta or any of these big box retailers, which I had worked with in the past, I didn't want those. So it was almost like that fast track that I had to get products into big box that I had experience with was actually the opposite of where I wanted to go, for the brand and for sustainability purposes.
It may have opened
So
doors, but you didn't go through all those doors. You selected the doors you
yeah,
wanted to go through. That's fascinating,
yeah,
and that's
and
so counterintuitive. It's not the way most people would build a business. In my younger days of business, like 34 years ago, I would say yes to everything, and eventually I learned that no was more profitable than yes in many
I agree.
cases. But I was just so hungry for business. I bootstrapped the business. I didn't have enough money to get started. We started in my garage, and eventually built factories and all that. But
So cool.
I was if someone asked me to build an electronic peacock, I would say yes. It's like, sure, I can do that. Yeah, it's not what we do. It's not the space we're in, but sure, it's money, right? And
Yeah.
that took us down a lot of rabbit holes that we should never have gone down. But having that vision up front, what about big box turned you off in terms of the vision for your business, and what made you avoid the obvious, what would be to many a very obvious choice, like Target or God forbid
So
Walmart or Amazon or
I
something. But
I had consulted on a well-known celebrity-backed beauty brand that went into a big box retailer. I have to keep it as big as possible, right?
yeah, keep it
So
vague. Yes.
they it, I was brought in because it needed some life added to it, and it was very upsetting because I'm trying to like dance around how to say. So it was
Yeah.
very upsetting because it was an amazing line. It was plastic free. It was priced very accessibly, right? And it was celebrity backed, and it was on the shelves of Target exclusively before Target started to decline, right? So it was when Target was still hot.
Yeah.
The mass
Back when it
consumer,
was Target, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
the mass consumer did not want it, even though it was 2020, 2021, in like the height of everyone talking about the environment and dolphins returning to Venice canals and all of that time, and everyone was really gung ho about sustainability. It still flopped. And the amount of marketing dollars required by that brand to try and get people into Target to buy this plastic free brand, it was not working. They couldn't get the sustainable audience into that store. And I saw that I mean, those kind of big box accounts will kill a brand if they're not
Oh yeah.
done right
Yeah.
and if things aren't flying off the shelves. And I had
Right.
seen that many times in my career, non-sustainable brands they'd be so excited to get into Sephora and they'd be dead in a few
Right.
years.
Right.
Oh, the same thing. Walmart, you saw the same thing. And so I knew that I did not want to put myself through that heartbreak. That's really what it came down to. It's like that is to me is not aspirational. You have to grow. You have to grow kind of from the bottom up and build really strong scaffolding and
Yeah.
demand before you go into a store like that because it is the easiest and fastest way to kill your company.
Yeah. That's a lot of insight there. But you're right. Every company. One example, not in the beauty industry, but one example was Rubbermaid. Rubbermaid, used to
Yeah.
sell. You probably grew up with it. Your mom probably had Rubbermaid stuff, and they sold it through a lot of like person-to-person parties, Rubbermaid parties, things like that.
Yeah.
And eventually, they got the invite from Walmart to sell at Walmart, and of course, they viewed that as wow, we're finally going big box, right, rather than home parties. And as I understand the story, Walmart came in and said, okay, where are you building this stuff? We're building it in the U.S. Not anymore. You're going to build in China. And, we've got factories there. We can refer you to, it's your business, but, we need the cost to be, instead of here, way lower. And so they did. And long story short, it almost bankrupted the company. And they lost that identity. They lost the person-to-person connection of home parties and the socializing and all of that. And it was made in the U.S. Back in the days when people really didn't care, they just assumed everything was made in the U.S. Now that people care more about that, I think they either bailed out of Walmart or bought their way out, or I don't know how the exit was, but it wasn't pretty. And I'm not sure if it killed the company or nearly killed the company, but it was bad either way. And that's a perfect example of what probably happens over time. As soon as you're no longer the favored child, as soon as you no longer justify an end cap or 4 feet of aisle space, you're out, right? I mean, their job is, I can't even say that's bad. I mean, that's their job. Their job is to put stuff in there that's going to turn, right? And
Right.
yeah.
Or you have to hemorrhage marketing to get more people in to take it off the shelves. And really, I mean, I've seen the shift from pre-Amazon big box to post-Amazon big box. Like what has happened? It's dramatically shifted. Consumer behavior has dramatically shifted. And so people are much faster at adding to their cart and clicking with one button, instead of actually getting up and going to a store. But for me, I wasn't studying a sustainable customer. I am that customer. And so I knew that for me, like I generally, as a sustainable customer, I stay away from big box retailers because it's just not the way I choose to shop. I shop a lot more intentionally. I shop a lot more secondhand. And that's just because I don't like a lot of stuff. Like I don't love the returns culture. I don't love the palletized goods in the background that require a lot of plastic. That I'm so deeply rooted in the sustainable community because it's my own behavior that I knew how other sustainable people shopped. Like, of course, it was disappointing to see at the height of, sustainability being popular that a brand couldn't survive in Target that was affordable. But I also very much understood why. And it's because the mass shopper is not behaving the same way as a sustainable one is.
Yeah.
So I purposely wanted my products where people I knew would be shopping, and that was zero waste stores and refilleries.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's, a lot of people will say what they say about Amazon, whether they're good for society or not. That history will judge that.
It doesn't, whether they're good or bad, they just are.
They just are, exactly. But one thing I think that is good that Amazon has done, which landed on your company and others, is it changed the perception of buying online. And, they've really changed that perception to the point where it's wrecked, downtown stores, storefronts, small independent businesses, they can't compete with Amazon. But, and big box, your big, clothing stores, JCPenney and Macy's and, even Saks and Bloomingdale's and even to a certain extent Nordstrom have all been affected by this online shopping. And they're doing their best to do online shopping as well. But I think one of the positive takeaways in the wake that Amazon has created is if you had started this 30 years ago, selling online, half the country wasn't online 30 years ago. And, it was the beginning. They were a giant icebreaker that forged the path through the ice that you and other consumer-to-consumer type businesses can operate in and thrive in at a different scale, obviously. But if it weren't for them or someone that ultimately would have done it anyway, that this would not be, you would be a much smaller company than you are today. And so in a way, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Mr. Bezos. Well, you opened it up for everybody.
I can make an argument that it could also, I mean, there's other ways that I think that Amazon has kind of destroyed the trade show. So because mom and pop shops and independent retailers are closing because of Amazon's behavior and their return policies and their speed, it's really difficult to make that assessment because had they not, had Amazon not existed, maybe trade shows would still be something that was worth going to for brands. Now, when
Yeah.
I go to a trade show, probably my last 5 or 6 trade shows I've been to have just been, we call them internally on our team, Amazon vultures who just want to bring brands onto Amazon.
Right.
And so
You've got one
it's
customer, you've got a bunch of
the
Amazon
one,
suits looking around saying, hey, I'll buy your stuff
yeah,
for pennies on the dollar.
I would say for every one retailer that would walk the floor, there are probably, I mean, I would say maybe even 25 Amazon
Wow.
people. Like,
Wow.
it was nuts. We're like, don't any of you people own stores? Like, that's how it was when we were at the trade show. And so,
Yeah.
I wonder if that ecosystem was never really disrupted. Would you still have this, that network of retailers that made things, that brought cool brands and curated cool brands out there? I don't know it, but I do think Amazon is like incredibly amazing as far as the tech of it. And I mean, it's now beyond tech, like beyond just getting people stuff. It's getting people movies, it's getting people
Yeah.
media. It's insane.
Yeah. I
I
agree.
don't know whether it's being or bad.
Well, history will tell.
We'll
Our
see.
our kids, when they're old and they have kids, they'll talk about the days. Your son, who's 11, I think
Yeah.
you said,
Mhm.
grew up on screens. All right. I mean, he was a technology native, where I am a
Mhm.
technology immigrant, right? Because there
Yeah.
was not the tech we have now. I didn't see my first quote unquote screen until I was, an adult, probably in my very early 30s before I got my first mobile phone. And I wouldn't even say screen at that point, but just a bunch of buttons. Yeah, I mean, it's a different whole different concept today, not just for shopping, but for information gathering and everything. What were some of your biggest challenges when you started Dip that maybe you didn't expect? I know you had a lot of expectations, you had a lot of experience, you knew
Yeah.
what you wanted, you had a clear direction, you had a purpose driven direction. But what were some of the things that you didn't expect that maybe became challenging in the early days?
So I had a manufacturer that I really loved. It was a contract manufacturer that understood what I wanted to do. I negotiated because I knew them. I negotiated lower MOQs, and I was able to start my company with less money than another beauty brand would be able to. And that was one of those things where the connections came in handy because I was able to negotiate down like really small initial orders. And I loved my manufacturer. They were amazing. But they stopped being amazing when they started to go bankrupt. And they took a big chunk of money for a deposit for purchase order, and then they went bankrupt. And I
Wow.
don't ever see that money ever. And so then I was there with just the inventory that I had and no manufacturer anymore. And so I was really, really sick during this time because it was so much stress. Like, you have orders coming in, you have customers being like, where's my stuff? And I couldn't produce more. I was watching like the inventory kind of just go down and down and down. And so I had to decide, like, am I going to bring my formulas, which were very special and very custom? Would I bring them to another contract manufacturer and trust them enough to not farm them out to a L'Oreal or to because if your brand reaches any kind of success in beauty, immediately everyone else tries to reverse engineer your
Sure.
products and
Yeah.
copy them.
Yeah.
And
They're
you don't,
like, we'll take it from here, Kate. Thanks. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You want to make that easier for them because they can just change 95, or they can keep 95% of your
Right.
formula and change just the marketing ingredients and then like
Sure.
sell it to someone else. So it was like, do I do that, or do I build my own factory or start my own factory? And so what I did was I took some of the displaced workers and I got my own factory started. And so I made the investment of my own factory,
Wow.
and yeah, so I now am an American factory owner as well, um, which was
You
not an
are
easy
all
task.
in. You are all
I was
in.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
but
let's talk
I
about
just
that. You didn't have any factory experience when you were working
no,
for 20 years in the industry. You probably knew how to market. You probably knew distribution channels. You knew that pretty well. But and you probably knew packaging. I'm guessing you probably knew packaging from what works, what doesn't work, but
right.
sources of where who's going to do your packaging or what type of packaging equipment and design, and your husband helps with that stuff. But where did you, as you're trying to build a company and distribute products and sell products and market products, where did you get the knowledge to actually build a factory? I mean, I built a factory, but it was in a space I was familiar with. I used to run a factory, so I just inherited that. You did not. Where did all that come from?
Well, it was baby steps, really, and because I had so. First things first is find a space. So you find a space, right? Like make sure that the loading trucks can get there, and make sure that it has enough room for equipment to batch, and make sure
Enough
you
power.
have employees, power, sink. You have to have like inspectors. You have to have like all of this stuff, new and kind of insurance. Like I had to take on all of these things. I took 2 employees that had been making dip since the beginning, and I gave them jobs, and I had to figure out how with them they did the bulk of the building of, like, I say building, but it's like getting the equipment there and making sure that it was a smooth running machine and everything. It's like just baby steps every day. There was something new to learn and something a new decision to make that I never thought I'd have to make before. And it's so much better when you have a team and you have like an amazing group of people that you work with that are mission driven the same way you are. It helps with that camaraderie of those times when things don't go according to plan, and you're like, okay, like I know that this is going bankrupt, but what if, like, crazy idea, what if we just all went over here and just started from scratch, and then you don't have to work with 600 other brands, you just work on diff. And like it was actually a great move for them, because I think it's very difficult to be on a sinking ship, like a bank, like a company that's going bankrupt. That obviously they had to hide a lot of information from me, and they weren't able, like you said, it's not like someone goes bankrupt in one day. There's like a common tale of weird behaviors that happen.
It's a sinking. Yes.
Hey, you're like, why aren't they answering their phones anymore? Like, where did my deposit money go? Like if you guys a big chunk, why aren't you ordering the fragrances from that vendor that we needed to have? Like, why has none of this been done? And the reality is you start to like put together, you're like, uh-oh, like, because at first you start to tell yourself like it's paranoia. You're like, oh, you're like, they got it under control. Like they're fine. They have all these other name brands. Everything's fine. And then the paranoia starts to turn into like reality. And you're like, oh no, I was like, right. I was right. This is not right. So it was tough.
A million things. I mentioned in the intro, in my research on you, you kind of famously decided you're not going to start a company with venture capital money and all that stuff. When you decided to go into making your own product, not just selling your own product, and you invested in a factory, you had to buy equipment, you had to buy processes, and did that just come out of operating income from the sales? You were able to kind of bootstrap without having to take on investors and things like that to build the factory?
I asked for an extended line on my credit card, and I just started throwing things on there, and I took myself on vacation later. So I just let the points accumulate. I paid.
That's the little cherry on top of the debt cake, right? It's
right, yeah.
I owe all this money, but look, I can go to Cancun for a weekend or whatever. Yeah,
that's exactly right. I mean, I used that, the fact that I had to go into debt, to my advantage in that way. And so I used the points to take myself to do store visits around the country, and to rent cars, and to go and visit the retailers I had face to face. So I just turned the debt into the machine that grew it. And sometimes you just have to figure out what to do. And then a year later, I had to double the size of my factory. And that was like, luckily, it wasn't that I would have been nice to, but then the space next to our space opened. And so it was like, if I don't do it now.
You got to do it. Yeah. Yeah. You have a small window to do it before the next tenant comes in.
Right. And so that was like another thing. Like I didn't want to necessarily double the square footage, but then I had to. Otherwise, it would have been a serious missed opportunity. So sometimes in entrepreneurship, there's these really stressful decisions. I can say them with a smile now, but I'd be lying if I wasn't up all night being like, should I start a factory or should I just give these formulas to someone someone else to make and hope that they're honest, and that all their employees are honest. It's very, very tricky, and the beauty industry is very ugly. Like, it just is called beauty by
but not. It's not a beautiful business. They're in the beauty business, but the business isn't beautiful. I think formulators all have, regardless. There was a time when we were selling a chemical and we used a formulator, and you don't always get what you want. Sometimes there's compromises. Sometimes they're just like, well, we don't do that, but we can do this instead. It's just as good. Trust me, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I do believe you need to really own the process, because so much can change. So much can change, and you may not be getting what you think you're getting, and until someone figures it out, and then it's your fault.
And then going vertical as a business ended up being the best business decision I ever made, because I was in control now of the raw materials. I knew actually how much these things cost to make, and I knew how much that contract manufacturer was upcharging me per bar, and it was significant.
So you're quite an anomaly in that, you didn't go for where probably 90% or more of people would have gone, the big box stores, chase the dream. And you also decided not to market your products in a conventional method.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing movie stars pushing your stuff. Oprah likes your stuff, which that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
she found it somehow.
What's that?
She found it through her editors, which is pretty amazing. So
right, yeah, you didn't have agencies banging on her door saying, "Look at me, right?" So your marketing style is very authentic, very down to earth, very grassroots. It mimics who you are. What made you go that route versus attending all the trade shows and all the things as an exhibitor rather than an attendee? What made you say, I'm not going to get into that circus atmosphere. I'm going to do something a little bit different? Where'd that come from?
So my background, I studied economics and math, and sometimes you see the law of diminishing returns, right? Like, you start to see that the more influencers you use, the less effective they are. The more fake user-generated content that is put out there, the less effective it is. I see that also. I see that in consumer behavior and advertiser behavior. The more you're bombarded with ads, the less effective they are. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun to kind of turn everything that I know about beauty marketing on its head and just be like, I'm not doing any of it. So that's the marketing. The marketing is that we don't do influencers. We don't use fake UGC, which is like fake customers showing how to use the product and stuff. We just source everything from our customer base and we pay them. And we tell people, if you see something about dip, it's probably from someone who paid for the product. And I find that really funny, because the easiest way to kind of lose yourself as a brand is to just give free stuff to everyone. But I think women are really smart. I predominantly market to women. I think women can tell instantly that someone hasn't purchased the product and someone's being, someone's just saying that they use something.
Yeah.
I just think they know, because I know, and maybe I'm jaded because I've been in the beauty industry for so long and seen all the marketing, but I have no interest in knowing someone's review, hearing someone's thoughts on something that they didn't pay for.
Yes.
Who cares?
I'm the same way. I always, my wife makes fun of me because if she wants to buy something for the house, I'll go, let me research it, because I enjoy doing that. And I'll go on YouTube and I will skip ahead. I will skip videos that are, box openings. For some reason, there's a whole genre of unboxing stuff. I'm like, why do I care about that? But they got it for free, so they got to make some content. So yeah, I find that stupid. But I can tell a good reviewer from a bad one, even if they say, this brand sent me this.
Yeah.
But they know me. I will give an honest review.
Right.
I'll accept that. I would prefer it to be purchased, but there's some stuff. I look at so much stuff that people aren't, amateurs that are making this thing, making these videos, can't afford to just buy everything to do a review. So I can respect it if they're honest about it, if they disclose that, and particularly if there's, even if it's an overall positive review, if there's a few criticisms in it, that to me gives it a little bit of legitimacy and credibility. But you decided in your marketing not to do stuff and not to do conventional stuff that everyone else is doing. But I see you out there a lot. And, when I was researching you, you've been on quite a few podcasts talking about dip and your journey, as you are with me. And I find that I refer to that type of marketing as conscious marketing. And you don't, in all the stuff I've seen on you, you talk about the product, obviously, but it's not all about the product. It's not about certain ingredients or how it smells and whatever. There are some very interesting product facts that are discussed, but it's more about the purpose of the company. And I find you said something that just triggered this memory. Several years ago, we stopped the madness. We stopped all of our traditional advertising, which was braggadocious and chest thumping and absolutely obnoxious advertising. We did all that. We played the game for 20 years. And then one year, we just got tired of the sound of our own voice. And this is stupid. Let's just stop it right now. And we switched over to this conscious marketing where we educate, we create content that doesn't even talk about our product. It talks about the reasons people would buy a product like ours. So, and that's kind of what I've seen with you. I learned the best way to sell your product is stop talking about your product. Connect with the customer or potential customer on a relationship level. Build authority. Share your purpose. Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you build this product? Why do you make this product? Why are you doing it differently? To me, that's how you get customers. And not just customers. People don't just become a customer. They join your tribe. And when I was watching all these videos of you in preparation for this, I went to my wife and I said, Debbie, have you ever heard of Dip? It's a hair product and other things too. And she's like, no. I said, you got to check it out. I mean, here am I evangelizing to my wife, but you got to check it out. And it's environmentally safely packaged, and I forget the attributes I told her, but I think that if you can market that way, the way you're doing it, and make it really mission centric, product almost secondary, people will consider you a tribe to join. And then they'll not only buy your product, they'll wear your merch. If you put Dip hats out or whatever, they'll wear your merch. I mean, Nike's proven that. Apple has kind of lost their edge there a little bit, but they proved that a while ago. There's brands, Patagonia, there's brands that, like Patagonia stands for environmental stuff. And, I have a Patagonia sweater and it has the Patagonia logo. And I was sitting across from someone on an airplane and they looked and went, oh, you're an environmentalist? I'm like, well, if this makes me an environmentalist, then yes. And yes, I care about the environment, but we connected, right? It's people like that association with something bigger than just the product. I guess that's the easiest way to say what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, one of the biggest things, like I've been on podcasts recently, but the first really 4 years of building Dip, I wanted to prove that you could do it without Amazon. I was quiet, heads down. Like I wanted to prove it before I talked about it, because no one cares if you're like still trying to prove something. I've now proved it. I've proved that you can build a business that redirects money back into local economies. Like as a brand, we've redirected over $5 million back into local retailers by telling people to get off of our website and go into stores and refill stores, salons, and surf shops in their town. And I have store owners write to us all the time. They're like, someone was on your site and saw that a store, and went to the store locator and they saw that we were in their neighborhood and they came in because of the Dip website. And that happens all the time. And that's really what I'm trying to do. That's bigger. Like shampoo and conditioner is like one thing, but really getting people back and excited about shopping in person again and supporting the place where they live is just so exciting to me anyway.
Yeah.
It's my little economist thing that I like.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'm a big believer in our factory. We have a policy. It's a written policy. We buy local when we can.
Yeah.
So I'm in California. So our goal is buy from California. Go
That's great.
California. The second, if we can't get it in California, then it's buy in the U.S. If we can't get it in
Right.
the U.S., it's we'll buy it in North America, Canada, Mexico,
Yeah.
U.S. And if we can't, like our machines all run off computers and things, and there's not a single computer made in the U.S. or North America. Okay, fine. Well, made in China or Taiwan or whatever. That's fine. But we won't source it direct from there. We will buy from a U.S. distributor who gets it from there, because we want every person connected with our success to have a skin in the game. And
I agree.
we want it to help, put their kids through school or braces on their teeth or whatever. We want to be part of that. And that's just the way we do it. And my business
refreshing.
colleagues
I never
make
hear
fun
that.
of me. They're like, "You're just overpaying." I'm like, "Yeah, we are, but it's built into the price. It's really part of our mission is support our community where we can." And that goes down to I can't tell you how many Little League games I've sponsored, and we'll put a sign up. I'm like, I don't want a sign. I mean, I'm in such a
Right.
niche industry. No one's gonna buy, going to a baseball game, see little Tommy's baseball game, and look, I was looking for one of those things. No. It's to me, it's just support your community and all of that. So that some people might say that maybe if they're a little cynical, they're like, so what? Kate sends people to retail stores that just sell her stuff anyway. So how is that good? You make less money when they go into a retail store and buy your product at a retail
That's
store
true.
or a refill shop, because they're buying wholesale. Consumer to
Exactly.
consumer is retail. So you are taking one for the team. But you're also, in addition to that being the right thing to do, it's also a savvy thing to do, which are by the way, the right thing and the savvy thing are often aligned, right? More
Yeah.
than people think. They are not mutually exclusive. And, where one customer might buy one box a month or whatever, and you make full retail off that one box a month, the local shops are buying, 10 cases a month, whatever the number might be. And yeah, you make a little less money, but overall more revenue flows in at a lower percentage profit, but still more revenue flows in. And these are people are vital to your distribution channel, in addition to Shopify and all that. And I think it does build that neighborhood, person to person connection that is tribe oriented, not transactional oriented. It's relationship oriented, which cannot hurt your business at all. So many entrepreneurs.
Well,
Yeah,
I was
sorry.
going
Go
to
ahead.
say, sometimes someone goes in to buy dip and comes out with other sustainable things, where sometimes someone goes in to buy dip and they talk to a store owner and ask questions while other people are shopping there. And then it starts like, the Aperol Spritz effect, where one person at a restaurant on a nice day will order an Aperol Spritz, and then everyone sees it coming on a tray, and then everyone starts to order. It's like that with dip
Yeah.
sometimes when they're talking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
To one customer, other people start listening and also buy it. So it's actually like really cool. I mean, we have one store that sells a dip bar, sells 4 to 5 dip bars a day, and it's just a small, independent little store, maybe like 400 square feet.
Interesting.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. We're about out of time, so just a couple more questions. Many entrepreneurs struggle with the tension between scaling a company and staying true to their mission. Many you've seen, I'm sure, I've certainly seen many companies that started off with a particular mission and strayed a little bit. I think, was it either Google or Yahoo? One of their missions was like, do no harm. And it's one of the big search engine companies. And that's a cool mission. I don't know if whatever company that was is still true to that mission. We can certainly argue there's some harm. I don't think it's intentional, but there's a lot of byproduct harm there. how do you manage to protect both your margins and your values as Dip has grown?
You know what? I don't chase this like kind of really fast growth. I just don't chase it. I can grow a little bit every month, and that percentage growth, it accumulates. That accumulation is really enough to sustain the business, the employees, the growth, the factory, the insurance, and I don't really need to be a very wealthy person um, at the expense of peace of mind and free time. It's just never something that I'm never going to aspire to be one of those people running a company that has like 200 employees. I love having a small company, and perhaps maybe when my kids are much older or graduate, have I'm just here in my house, I would hustle a lot harder, I think.
I'm going to have to reach out and call my 89-year-old mother, and I think we were separated at birth. Well, there's so many similarities in our experience. I'm a huge believer. I used to, in the early days of my company, chase revenue. If I needed
Yeah.
we pay payroll to this day weekly, every Thursday. So Wednesdays were always stress day for me. I was struggling to
Yeah.
bring in cash, and I'd set every goal, every single moment of the day. I'm chasing cash, and I would bring in the cash, not profit. It would be unprofitable cash. But that wasn't my problem today. My problem is payroll, right? I got to cover payroll. And then I would focus on profit. And then that's
Mhm.
all I would focus on, and that would be the expense of reliability or credibility. And anytime I focused on one KPI, it would be the expense of all the others. And finally, someone taught me, a mentor actually taught me that the result, the best way to handle cash flow, profit, market share, total revenue, all of the KPIs that we chase, is to just make good decisions. That's it.
Yep.
Just make good decisions. And all of those metrics are the results of good decisions. So now, much to the chagrin of our business bank, they come in once a year. They have to do a proof of life. They have to walk in and actually meet with the owner. And so I got dragged in once a year for that. And of course,
Yeah.
they have a checklist. And on the checklist, it's, what's your revenue growth expectation for this coming year? I said, we don't have one. And he looks at me like, there's no box for that. there's no, I can't write, he doesn't have one, Mike. And I'm like, well, what number do you want to see? Well, typically they like to see like 15%. I said, okay, 15%. I said, but that's not real. I mean, if you want to write it down, I won't argue with it because it'll probably be more than that. But he goes, how can you not have a goal? I said, we have a goal to make great decisions. And the profit is simply a scorecard scoring the quality of the decisions we made. If we made what we thought were great decisions and then we waited to see the results, survey said 12% decline in revenue. Okay, we need to figure out what great decisions are because clearly we did not make great decisions. What's the reason? And so now we don't set any of those goals like you. We just focus on building the best product in class and having the best degree of service to our customers and making the best decisions in every aspect of our business that we can make. And then we kind of eagerly wait and see what the results are. And
That's all that matters.
And that results in organic growth. When you try and grow unorganically, meaning you're putting everything into growth, you will spend yourself out of money in a heartbeat. So many companies go bankrupt, not because they're not profitable. Ironically, they're profitable. They just don't have cash flow. And they run out of cash, even though technically if all that cash came in tomorrow, they would have a profit on it, but they don't. Right. So yeah, to me, I spent a lot of years chasing growth, caused nothing but trouble. Now we just spend all our effort just making great decisions. And that sounds exactly like what Dip does. And I can tell you, 34 years of doing what I'm doing and eventually discovering what you've already discovered, you're way ahead of me. You started with that philosophy. I think that it's not if you will become successful, it's you are successful and you will continue to be successful because that's That's a strategy that just works. It's almost like a physical law, like the law of gravity. It is a physical law, and it just works. It's make great decisions and see what the business gods reward you with, right? And
Hopefully they're kind in the year of the horse.
they can be a little twisted. I refer to the business gods all the time, and they can be a little twisted. They like to. I deserved to go out of business many times in my early days, and I think the panel of business gods looked at me and went, "Yeah, Mike's got to go. Oh my God, he's an idiot. Oh, Mike's got to go." And then one of them just said, "Well, hey, he's funny. I mean, it's fun to watch him make all these bonehead mistakes." And they said, "Yeah, but we ought to kill him off." And then one of them would go, "Well, but look at what they're doing for the environment. We're a very green company as well. Look at what they're doing buying local. Look at what they're doing for the families in their community. Look at their philanthropic stuff." And they're like, "Fine, one more chance," right? It helps.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. It only helps. Well, Kate, one last question as we depart. How did you define success when you first started your business, and how do you define it now? Any difference?
So when I first started my business, I think I defined success as seeing people having someone buy something twice. Like that for me in the beginning, like sustainability wise, the excitement of seeing someone put in a second purchase, because that means that you met their expectations, like that they really loved it. And it was hard for me to find something that I would buy twice in sustainability, to be honest. So that was in the beginning. And now success is having happy employees that I can pay and give bonuses to. Like that, to me, and myself being able to spend time with my children and run a business and engage with someone like you, like that is a different kind of success that feels really good. I really do love my company. I think my customers can tell that I love running my company, and I think my team can tell. And
it shows. It definitely shows.
Somehow I think that energy kind of goes, this is where I get a little woo-woo, forget like the math and economics. Like I think that energy goes through the universe a little bit. And the business gods are smiling now. They're not always happy. Sometimes they throw those tests. But for the most part, it's been really, really a wonderful journey. And the hard decisions are made so much, they're very hard. A lot of the hard decisions are made so much easier when you really love what you do.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I'd say you're off to a great start, but you're well past your start. I wish you continued success in your journey. And for my customers, I'm already selling your product now. For my audience, for my listeners and viewers who would like to get more information on DIP, I will put DIP's website information, the URL. If you're watching this on YouTube, look right down here. It's right down there. See more. Information on the company will be there. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, of course, go to the app, look at the show notes, and that information will be there as well. Continued success, Kate. You're very impressive. My only regret is that I didn't know what you know now, and what eventually I figured out through the process of elimination. My only regret is I didn't learn what you started with sooner. But keep going, keep saving the world, and thanks so much for spending the last hour with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for spending this hour with me, and everyone listening. Thank you for making it this far. We really appreciate you.
Yes, we do. Okay, take care, Kate.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, here are some final thoughts. As we wrap up today's conversation, Kate's story reminds us that entrepreneurship doesn't have to follow a predetermined script. So often we hear that success means scaling as fast as possible, selling every available platform, and chasing the biggest distribution channels you can find. But Kate chose a different path. She built a growing brand while deliberately avoiding some of the most common shortcuts in modern e-commerce. Instead, she focused on something that can be harder to maintain as a business grows: clarity and mission. Her approach raises an important question for entrepreneurs. Is the goal simply to grow as fast as possible, or is it to build something that reflects what you believe in and the impact you want to have? Kate's journey suggests that those two goals don't have to be mutually exclusive. Sometimes the most powerful business decisions are not the ones that maximize short-term growth, but the ones that preserve the values that made the business worth building in the first place. Now, that's a wrap. Thanks for being part of our Reluctant Entrepreneur family. We've been so busy recording future episodes with fascinating guests, so be sure to subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. And one favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, consider giving us a like and subscribe. Those 2 simple clicks really help us expand our reach. If you're an entrepreneur or know someone who would make a great guest, I'd love to hear from you. Visit reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com to apply or recommend a guest. And of course, a very quick shameless plug. If you're interested in my book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Anatomy of a Business Startup from Uncertainty to Unstoppable, it's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon and as an audiobook on both Audible and Amazon. And to everyone listening or watching, if you find yourself stepping into entrepreneurship, whether by choice or by circumstance, remember this. Sometimes the path we never planned becomes the journey we're meant to take. Thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it. I'll see you again very soon.